Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another episode of the Think Clinical Podcast. My name is Hamza. It is great to be here once again, and I really do appreciate everything you do for this channel. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share. Anytime we upload a new video, you will be among the first to see it if you do subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us, and today I will be talking about something that is both personal but most importantly professional for everybody, which is how we establish partnerships. So I have personally been burnt a couple of times on partnerships that did not have a structure, didn't have a framework. There were no defining guidelines from beginning. There were no contracts signed. There were no agreements in place. And as the business started growing, there was just a lot of chaos that led to a lot of problems. And this is something that I'm hoping that I can support people and I can support you to avoid in the future, especially when you're going to partnership with people you call friends or people you think are friends. And there are so many things that we ignore in the beginning. So just think about this. If you have 3 physicians in a practice, and it could be any practice, and you have 15 years of successful partnership, and then it all collapses in 18 months. Can you even imagine the circumstances that will lead to this? And the fight about this and the breakdown was never or had nothing to do with patient care. It had nothing to do with clinical decisions. This was all about money, and specifically how to split money. And by the time the dust settles, people have spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees, and a practice that's probably worth $4 million is sold for $1.2 million in the fire sale. Careers are damaged because the doctors who were in such a good partnership have now, and relationships have been destroyed. This could be a lifetime of friendships that have been destroyed. This is what I'm trying to help you avoid today. And if you listen to me through this, what I hope will not be as long as I anticipate it will be, you will understand some of the problems that are feeding into some of these breakdowns after years of success suddenly becoming a problem. Now, what are healthcare partnerships in the first place? Now, the underlying factor here is that these are business structures, and you have 2 or more individuals involved. So that's why it becomes a partnership. So think about this as a marriage. Think about this as going into a partnership with a woman you want to spend the rest of your life with. Now, business partnerships or healthcare partnerships, these 2 or more people come together for specific reasons. 1, they come together to share ownership of the business. Important. 2, they come together in order to be able to manage responsibilities in the group, which is one of the biggest benefits of having partnerships. They come together to share profit and losses, which is the reward for all the hard work everybody puts in, and when everybody keeps up with their responsibilities. And they also come together to manage the legal liability. So the liability doesn't lie on just me, but it's lying on 3 or 4 of us. So then it becomes easy to manage. And also the decision-making authority, we share it, because then now we can put a decision that would have been made by one person is now a collective decision by 3 or 4 people, where you have diverse ideas and you're able to make more informed decisions and looking at situations from every angle, right? In healthcare, partnerships typically are from either multiple physicians. So you have multiple doctors who come together, share an interest. Maybe they have different specialties, so they decide to come together, create a group practice, and all thrive. Or they have the same. They are all orthopedic surgeons. They want to open the biggest, baddest orthopedic surgery center wherever they are, and they come together to do that. We also have physicians and business operators. So you have a physician who has a clinical skill, but they partner with a business operator who manage the financial or the business side of things. You have clinicians or non-clinical professionals who also partner. And you have multiple practice locations that eventually can be merged to become one big group and give them more leverage power. As I said, this is like a marriage, but for business, you are legally and financially tied together. So your partner's decision can affect your income, it can affect your reputation, and it can affect your future. So when you're going to partnerships, do not take them light. Partnerships are not the avenues. Keep those two, personal and business partnerships, completely separate, regardless of who the other partner is. It could be your brother, it could be your friend. Hold them to the same standard and the same framework on which every partnership should be created if you did not know them. Now, what are those types of partnerships? We have general partnerships, and in these situations you have all partners who have an equal say, you have all partners who share liability, you have all partners who participate in management, and most common in small physician groups. That is where you find these general partnerships. But the second type of partnership is what we call limited partnership, which is we have general partners who manage the business and assume all the liability, but we have limited partners who invest capital but have no management role. And then usually it's common when you bring on investors. So you have big investors, but you have other people who have a joint venture with these big investors. And then we have the third type, which are limited liability partnerships. Now these partners have limited liability protection. Each partner isn't responsible for another partner's malpractice. Everybody is responsible for their own, and these are commonly seen in very large practice groups or physician groups. The fourth one are professional corporations with shareholders, which are typically not partnerships but function as one. So you have physicians and you have the big corporations in some form of joint venture agreements, running individual practice within a bigger group. We have shareholders who own the equity, of course, and we have providers, and it provides liability protection, and it has a very sophisticated structure. So that's the professional corporation with all the stakeholders. So these are the different types of partnerships that you see. Now, before we dive into some of the common challenges that people have, why do entrepreneurs even form partnerships? Why would healthcare entrepreneurs form partnerships? First of all, and most importantly, it will cost you nothing less than $500,000 to $2 million to start your own practice. Now, how many people have that amount of capital lying there and ready to invest in their own practice? These partnerships help you meet those capital requirements, because instead of me raising $600,000 or $500,000 by myself, if I bring on two or more partners, maybe two more partners, that brings me down to about $160,000, $170,000 instead of me taking up all the costs. And now sharing it with at least 3 or 4 partners, right? Now we look at partnerships that allow you to share the risk. That's the second reason why people go into partnerships. So you have regulatory compliance challenges, you have malpractice exposure, which all of you share the liability, reimbursement, and certainty, which together and with that partnership you have a bigger bargaining power. And then just to be competitive in the market, it gives you that. So that's the second reason why people do partnerships. The third reason is to complement each other's skills. So I may be a physician, but I have some skill sets in running a business. You might be a physician, but you have a huge skill set in the number of patients you can see in a day without burning out. You might be you're not a non-physician, but your skill set is in making sure that we get reimbursed at the right rates. You can negotiate and get this done. Partnerships help people with diverse skills to be able to come together and use skills to complement where each other person is lacking. It could be clinical expertise, it could be business, it could be operational management. All those things help. And lastly, especially for physician partnerships, you are able to cover each other. If I had my own practice, I'm working every day and I'll be on call every day, and that work-life balance never even exists for me. But in a partnership, if I'm on call this week, maybe the next week my partner is on call, and the week after the next partner is on call, and all that. So it gives you that leverage. And the last one is just a competitive advantage. You have better payer contract negotiation power. You share overhead costs, so you have 2 patient care coordinators, but you have 3 providers, so they are working for all of you instead of you having one to yourself, which will be too much cost. You have marketing efficiency because you're marketing the same practice, the same location, so you are spending, but you are all distributing that. You have the ability to offer more services, especially when the partnership involves different people with different skill set, and you have a stronger market presence, especially when you are in a very competitive environment like the healthcare sector. So basically, the appeal here is that it's when it works, partnerships are really incredible. So they help you to really share the financial burden, like I said in the beginning. You obviously have a better quality of life. You have a reduced stress and isolation. You have enhanced competitive position. You have mutual support and collaboration, and you have built-in succession planning. So when they work very well, they work really well. So this is where it gets tricky. This is all good if you do the partnership agreements correctly. However, like I did in the past and in some circumstances, and I have seen people do time and time again, and I've seen people get burned time and time again, people make these mistakes. The first mistake is a handshake agreement where, oh, we are friends, we've been friends for a long time, we trust each other, we know each other, and then we don't need formal agreements. That's usually what would come. No, let's get this built. Let's start building it. Everybody starts putting money in. Nobody's even tracking what anybody's investing. Nobody's tracking what this business looks like. There's no number. Then, if this business picks up at some point and it starts getting successful, and then everybody starts seeing money coming in, and now the question is, how do we share this money? Everything you do in a business must be documented. I have seen lifelong friends get destroyed because they didn't put agreements in writing. Anytime money is involved, especially large amounts of money like we have in the healthcare sector, you have to understand that this is going to always be the conversation. Everything must be documented. The second one is equal split by default. There are three of us, so we just split it into 3 equal parts. So 33% for you, 33% for me, 33% for the next person, right? That's easy to say, but equal splits only work when partners have equal capital requirements or contributions. Equal splits only work when equal time is actually invested. How would you manage that? How would you even measure that? Equal split is important if equal productivity levels are achieved, which is impossible. Equal split is possible if equal risk is there's equal risk exposure, which is not the case here, and equal risk is possible, equal share is possible if equal scale value, which is not there. So in reality, these conditions really and rarely don't exist between two partners. One partner might work for 60 hours while the other works 40 hours. One might generate double the revenue. Things would always not be as you think about them to be. Again, everything must be documented. The third one is that no performance metrics. We'll figure it out as we go. No numbers, nothing. The biggest avoidance here is that people even avoid the conversation of talking about numbers, because sometimes the reality is that the numbers make you know whether you're doing a good job or not, or whether the business is struggling. People don't look at that. So this creates resentment faster than anything else when you don't have performance metrics. When you don't have clear productivity expectations that you give each other as partners, the overachiever will feel exploited, the underachiever will feel attacked, and no objective basis for difficult conversations would be established, and there will now be emotional conflicts instead of data-driven conversations. Now, when you get into a business, the conversations have to be data-driven. You cannot have emotional conversations in a data-heavy setting like a business setting in healthcare especially. You need to define clear metrics from day one. Patient volume. How many patients do you need to be seen a day? What is the revenue generation that I'm expecting from you, and what am I expecting from myself? Call coverage. What do we do? Administrative responsibilities. Who is going to work on this? Who is working on this? You need to define those very clearly. And then the fourth mistake I see people doing is ignoring sweat equity. One partner does the heavy lifting from the start of the business, and you have new partners who walk in years after that when the business kicks off and they want equal ownership. That's not possible, because somebody was there to negotiate the lease when you were not there. Somebody was there to purchase and transport and supervise installation of equipment when you're not there. Somebody was there to set up systems when you're not there. Somebody was there to do hiring when you were not there, to train people, to market the practice. Then you don't walk in 2 years later and begin to request for equal partnership. So the founding partner would rightfully become resentful because, or partners will become resentful because they have seen how much work they've put into this. So, and the last mistake that I want to talk about is that there's no exit strategy. People actually think we'll be partners forever, and I have seen this work out so many times, but life happens. People go on retirement, people relocate, there's disability, there's death, there's divorce, there's career changes, philosophical differences. Life really does happen, and without a clear exit strategy, you are going to have very, very heavy valuation disputes. I'll come up and say my share is worth this, but what do we have in place to be able to say it's not or it is? Forced liquidation at terrible prices. So you have a $4 million practice that is selling for 1.2 because it's become a litigation point. We have family members inheriting partner stakes, which mostly ends in disaster. And then we have a practice paralysis because you can't make decisions and you can't even move forward with that. You need an agreement that includes your buy-sell provisions, your valuation formulas. How are you going to evaluate your company in the event that you need to exit? Your exit procedures. Before you even need them, these things have to be in place. And anytime I'm coaching or talking to people who are looking at building businesses and their partnerships, they usually feel like I'm asking too much of them. But you need to understand that when you do not have these things in place, or when you spend the time up front to be able to get these things in place, it really, really, really saves you a lot of time. And one other mistake that I'll just probably throw in here is that when you have non-clinical partners in a healthcare environment, most of the time they are not really valued that much. So the clinicians usually generate the funding, and they undervalue the contribution of the non-physician or non-clinician. I have been on both sides of the spectrum, and I can tell you that operations management and business development creates tremendous value, and it's a lot of work. So you need to be able to compensate such people as they need to be, so that they can actually build a framework for your business to keep going. So let's move on to how then we can create sustainable partnerships. The first thing is partnership agreements. I've said this to too many people, and I'll keep saying it. You cannot run a business without proper partnership agreements. That just doesn't work. So before you even think about starting that business, put together the framework and the agreement on that. What are the ownership percentages? Because that will determine, as the cost, if I own 60% and you own 40%, I'm eligible for 60% expenses. I'm eligible for 60% of liability. Everything that's coming out, we know how this is going to look at. What are the capital contributions? What are the profit and loss allocations? What are the decision-making authorities? What are the partner responsibilities? Addition of new partners, how does it look like? How are you going to present this to people? Dissolution procedures or exit strategies, you need to establish it. That's the first document. That has to be the first one. And we're going to talk about the 5 critical documents. So the first document that you're looking at is a partnership agreement. The second document you're going to look at is a compensation plan, which is going to be like, what is the base compensation formula? What's the base? What are the production bonuses? What are the expense allocations, benefits and perks, performance metrics? What are the adjustment procedures? These must be clear, they must be quantifiable, and they must be fair. The third document you need is a buy-sell agreement, which would cover your valuation methodology, how you're evaluating your company, your payment terms, the triggering events. Is it when somebody goes on retirement? Is that when you have to trigger the process? Disability, death, termination. When are these triggered? You need to be very clear on those. Right of first refusal, non-compete clauses. You need that's the third document you need, which is supposed to be your buy-sell agreement. The fourth document you need is your operating agreement. Day-to-day business operations, your management structure, your voting procedures, your authority limits, your banking and financial controls, and your administrative responsibilities. These are the things you need as the fourth document. And the fifth document you need is your employment agreement. You have to be able to clearly articulate, regardless of the position, the duties and responsibilities. What are the compensation terms? What are the benefits? What are termination procedures? And what are the restrictive covenants? You need a daily. So these are the 5 documents you need. Again, you need your partnership agreement, which is your first document that you need to get in place. You need to get a compensation plan document. You need to get a buy-sell document. You need to get an operating document, and you need to get an employment agreement in place. These are the things that you need to get together before you can actually start looking at starting any form of a business. And again, Money, and wherever you have money in place, you have to be always ready to have the real unfiltered conversations. And the moment you start documenting anything, you start really looking at all this into detail, then you tend to really understand exactly what it takes to run a successful partnership, because it's a very advantageous thing. So let's wrap this up. Partnerships fail just because of money disputes. It's as simple as that. You cannot go into a partnership with the assumption that your emotions will carry you through that conversation. Your partnership conversation plan has to be in place, and you have to make sure that you have your documentation in place. If you are forming a new partnership, please hire a healthcare attorney and accountant immediately. You need to discuss compensation philosophy before signing anything. You need to design a transparent formula that everyone understands. You need to document everything in a formal partnership agreement, and you need to build an annual review and adjustment procedure. If you're in an existing partnership with compensation issues, first of all, you need to acknowledge that problem openly, and you need to hire a neutral third-party consultant if needed. Review the compensation data objectively, design a new formula together, and implement it gradually. And if you are considering joining a partnership, ask to see the compensation formula in writing. Request 3 years of financial statements, which is very important. Talk to existing partners about satisfaction. Understand the buy-in requirements and timeline, and have an attorney review it all the time. Please remember, fair doesn't always mean equal. Transparency builds trust. Document everything, review and adjust annually, and address issues early. This is the only way you can get the full value of a partnership that would take you to a point where everything becomes clear from day one until you are done, or you get to the end point or the exit point of this partnership. This has been another episode of the Think Clinical podcast. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you in our next episode. Remember to subscribe, like, and share, and we will be here to take any questions that you may have. Have a good day.